Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to the Coaching Corner. It is Tuesday. You guys know we love our Tuesdays because we get to come on the Coaching Corner with you all and talk about all things special education. For those of you who are new, I am Jamila, aka the IEP Coach, and I am the founder and CEO of the IEP Coach LLC. We are an education consulting company and we specialize in providing professional development and coaching to special education teams, teachers, and paraprofessionals so they can thrive and not just survive in their roles. That's just a little bit about what we do. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for tuning in. And as you are tuning in, please drop in the comments where you are tuning in from. And as always, share out this live. Share out this live because tonight we are talking about behavior plans that work and how they align in the IEP. So you definitely want to share this out with parents, with teachers, admin. A lot of people need help making sure they document behavior correctly in IEPs. So go ahead and share out this live. And as I'm telling you to share it out, I'm sharing it out as well. And I hope Eid Mubarak to all the Muslims that were fasting. Ramadan is officially over. I pray that you enjoyed your festivities and that, you're fasting and all your fasting, all your du'as are accepted. Ameen. And it weighs heavy in your scales. Ameen. I enjoyed my Eid festivities yesterday. Oh, it was great. The weather was great. I got some water ice. I tore that water ice up. Oh my God, it was so good. I got some left over. I didn't even finish eating it from yesterday. I had some left over. So yes, share out the live. And the rain came later. So I was very happy about that. It came much, much, much later. So let me go ahead and share out this live. Okay, let me go to the right page. How about that? All right. And I hope, and now it's back to being cold. It is back to being cold. So, hey, but I mean, that's like the March, April weather, it'll be flip flopping. Hopefully, it's just consistent. So yeah. I sure enough did this wrong. Go back. Go here. Here we go. Now I can share it out. All right. And I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you all are doing well. All right, posted. And we are going live on all of our platforms, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. So feel free to tune in. You can share it out. I just shared it out. We've shared it out with our email list as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in. Alrighty. So tonight's topic is behavior plans that work. Okay, aligning IEPs with your students' needs. Okay, so IEPs, for those who don't know what an IEP stands for, Individualized Education Plan. Now, in the IEP, it does not just list academic goals and how the IEP is going to support your child academically. If your child exhibits any type of behaviors, that needs to be shifted. That needs to be listed in the IEP as well. And it needs to be documented how the student will be supported with that behavior. How are they going to work on that behavior to improve that behavior? Okay. So behavior is a part of the IEP as well, but it only if your student has behavior needs. There are some students who they don't have academic needs. They have strictly behavior needs. So their IEP list behavior goals and perhaps a related service that will support them with that behavior. So first off, again, you got to shift your mindset that the IEP is not just for academic. It's also a tool to address behavioral needs. That's the first step there. Okay. Now, here are some signs that an IEP may not be addressing your child's behavior needs or may not be addressing it effectively. Okay. The student has escalating behavior issues, but there is no FBA. If your student has escalating behaviors, meaning it may start off small, but then they escalate, they build, and the behavior is getting worse and worse, but there's no FBA documented in that IEP. That right there lets you know, okay, this, I don't know how you're going to support my child with their behavior because you don't have an FBA, and an FBA is a functional behavior assessment. And you must do a functional behavior assessment before creating any behavior goals and putting any behavior support in the IEP, because the FBA, functional behavior assessment, it helps you to pinpoint the root of the behavior, when the behavior is occurring, perhaps why it's occurring, how long it's occurring. What does the student gain from that behavior? That's what the FBA allows you to see. And then from there, you can create goals and supports. But if you don't have an FBA in that IEP, I know for sure you're not effectively supporting that student's behavior. Another sign is the present level section, which is section 2. It mentions behavior, but there are no behavior goals. If you're mentioning behavior in a present education level section, or the PLOP, present levels of performance, there's so many different acronyms for it. If you're mentioning behaviors, but you don't include behavior goals or supports, I know that IEP is not supporting that student in the behavior. And also in when you're writing the IEP and it gives you those different questions, like, oh, does the student have communication needs, and you check yes or no. Does the student have behavior needs, and you check no, but then you mention behavior in the present education levels. I know you're not properly support. That IEP is not going to support that student's behavior. It's not. Because how can you mention behavior in the present education level section, but you don't have no goals and no supports for that behavior? That's a second sign that that IEP is not supporting that student's behavior. A third sign, the accommodations are very vague. Remember, vague is very broad. So like, if a student exhibits behaviors like the accommodations modifications, they should be very specific to that student on how that behavior is going to be addressed. So to just say preferential seating, that's not really what, like, well, what's the behavior here? How is preferential seating going to help? Whereas for me, I had a student who, I used to be an emotional support teacher. So all of my students had behavior goals. They had behavior plans. Some of them had group counseling and individual counseling. So I had a student who had trouble completing homework. So one of his accommodations was he had to check in and check out for me. That was in his IEP, because in the morning when you come, I need to see, did you do all your homework? Before you leave school, we're going to check your belongings to make sure you copy down your homework and you have everything you need for your homework. And then when you come in the next day, we're going to check to make sure you did your homework. And if you didn't do your homework, you're going to sit down and do it. Do as much as you can before the first period bell rings. That's very specific to that student who does not complete work. Okay. And lastly, number 4, another sign is the BIP, which is a behavior intervention plan. It hasn't been updated. BIPs, if your child has a BIP, a behavior intervention plan, it has to be updated and updated as behaviors occur, as behaviors improve. If new behaviors occur, you have to continuously update the BIP. Okay, so signs that the IEP isn't addressing the behavior: if there is no FBA, a functional behavior assessment. The IEP mentions behavior in section 2, but there are no goals and no services to support that behavior. The accommodations are very vague, and the BIP, the behavior intervention plan, hasn't been updated. Those are some clear signs that the IEP, it is not servicing the student's behavior effectively. It's not. Okay. Now, what should be included in the IEP to address behavior? Let me know in the comments. What do you think should be included in the IEP to address behavior? What should be included? And just take a guess. I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to holler at you. What do you think should be included in the IEP to address behavior? Let me know in the comment section. And let me go check Instagram to see. And there are no right or wrong answers. I'm not going to scream at you. Don't be scared. What do you think needs to go in an IEP to address behavior? Oh, y'all shy tonight. Okay, that's all right. Well, first, we have to make sure that in the present education levels, that we include the behavior data. So if a student is exhibiting behaviors, first thing you need to do is start collecting data. So you can do this through observations. You can do this through rubrics. It could be a behavior chart that you have. So you're going to use all that to collect data. Now you have to think behavior is something that you see, is observational. So you're going to have to find a way to quantify that when you create goals for your behavior. So this is why a lot of teachers will use rubrics, but you want to make sure that your rubric is very clear and to the point and on how you are, what is a 3? A 3 should be super clear, what the student needs to exhibit in order to get a 3. 2, the behaviors need to be super clear on what the student has to do in order to receive a 2 and a 1. Okay, so first you want to collect your data just to see, okay, are there any patterns? Is the behavior happening in the morning versus the afternoon? Does it happen when they transition? Does it happen when it's a non-preferred task? Does it happen when he or she has to go to a class that they don't like? Collecting the data and then analyzing the data helps you see any patterns. Okay. And then you're going to see, and then it helps you to describe, okay, I know this is happening in the morning, but what is triggering the behavior to occur? So that's going to be in your present education levels, because it's like, not only will you document the behavior, what's causing the behavior? And then you include your input from the teachers in the school. Hey, is this behavior happening in your class? Okay. So the present levels is going to give you all the data, any patterns, and describe the triggers, the causes of the behavior. Then from there, you will use that information to create measurable SMART goals for the behavior. So you're going to be specific to the behavior to improve it. Like, for example, you're going to include the number of verbal outbursts or transition times. You're going to be very specific with it. And you have, again, make sure it's SMART. Make sure your goals are SMART. They're specific. It's measurable. It's attainable. Attainable, or achievable. SMART. It is relevant and it's time bound. Okay. You always want to make sure the goals are SMART. Okay. And then after you have your goals, your SMART goals, your SMART behavior goals, then you want to create accommodations and supports for that behavior. So for example, you have an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, and it will list out how often that behavior is occurring, when it's occurring, why it's occurring. Now, what's going to be that replacement behavior? Excuse me, that's the BIP, that's the behavior intervention plan. But you want to make sure you have an FBA, and you want to make sure you have a behavior intervention plan. So list, okay, we know what the behavior is. How are we going to what is the replacement behavior we want the student to have? How will we help that student achieve that? So what strategies does a student need? Do we need to model for the student and teach the student? And what services will they need? Okay, so it's like you're going to have the replacement behavior. What is that replacement behavior? Okay, the replacement behavior could be, okay, they're going to complete all their assignments. Okay, and if they start completing on their assignments, okay, what's going to happen? Do they earn something? If they don't exhibit that replacement behavior, what's going to happen? What is the consequence? So what will happen? So in your behavior plan, behavior intervention plan, you don't just have, oh, all the consequences that's going to happen if they don't do it, but you also include when they do exhibit that replacement behavior, what will they earn? Okay. And then you're going to also include in the accommodations and supports part is, okay, what type of supports do they need? Do they need counseling? Do they need group therapy? Do they need social skills group? Do they need, what do they need to check in and check out? Like, what do they require? Do they need a daily rubric? Do they need a weekly rubric? What do they require to help them learn the strategies and skills to model that replacement behavior? Okay. Then you're going to list. Now, if they require services, you're going to list, well, how often will they get that counseling? How often will they check in and check out with you? How often will they have social skills group if they require it? Okay. So you can't just say, oh, the student will have counseling. How often? And how long? Okay. Then you have to think, well, who is helping to support the student with their behavior? Is it going to be all the teachers? Everybody that instructs that student is going to be at the table helping to support with that behavior. So they're going to be, everybody's going to complete that weekly rubric or that daily rubric. As a SPED teacher, communicate with the team. Hey, we're working on this strategy. We're using this strategy. Hey, if this is so-and-so's behavior intervention plan, make sure you, I don't want to say announce to the team, but make sure that the IEP team is aware of the behavior intervention plan for the student. What are going to be the strategies? What's going to be the things that they can earn? What's going to be the consequences? So everybody that instructs this student is aware of the strategies, the supports, and accommodations that the student requires. So again, I told you I was an emotional support teacher. All the teachers knew we did check in, check out. All the teachers knew they had a rubric. All of the teachers knew. And they knew that they had some type of support. But they always knew they had check in and check out. So they would hold students accountable, like, oh, you better hurry up and get to Miss Bashir to check out. Because they knew that was a part of their support. Okay? So sometimes things get listed in the IEP, but the case manager may not make the whole team aware. You got to make the whole team aware of what that behavior intervention plan consists of. And what are the strategies? What is going to be the support for that student? Okay? Alrighty. Now, last thing you want to do is make sure everybody is clear on that behavior intervention plan and everybody is clear on how they're going to track the behavior. So remember I said behavior, it's observational. You observe it. So you have to quantify it in order to track it. So this is why we use daily rubrics or behavior rubrics. And they don't have to be paper. You can use a Google Sheet. You can use a Google form. I did electronic rubrics because I wanted it to be confidential. Because if I'm using a paper rubric and that student loses that paper, you lost my data. So that's one reason why I went to electronic forms. And I sent that to teachers. And I even sent teachers an Outlook invite because some teachers said, Miss Bashir, I forget sometimes. Is this some way that you can send this to me maybe 5 minutes before class ends? I said, oh, sure. Sent them an Outlook invite. It got the link to the behavior rubric that they have to complete. And I was getting more teachers filling out that behavior rubric. And then it was easy for me to share the results with their parents. And again, it's confidential. And I could review it with the student. And I won't lose the data because it comes back to my account. Okay? So you got to be able to track the behavior and make sure teachers are completing the rubric. And I know sometimes this is hard because you might forget. I had a teacher, oh my God, he refused to use the he refused to use the form. He kept using paper. And I physically had to go to his classroom. And I was just like, we're going to say his name is Mr. White. I said, Mr. White, can we please use the Google form? I'll show you how easy it is. And once I showed him, he said, that's it. I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay. But he literally would hand deliver that sheet to me every day. His classroom was across the hall from me. But I had to physically go show him. And I had patience with him. I wasn't like, oh my God, no, I wasn't. Just show teachers. Try to make it easier for your gen ed teachers to complete, or gen ed and sped teachers, on how to complete the form. Hey, like I said, I put it in an Outlook invitation just to make it easier so they would remember to do it. Okay? And then you have to make sure you revisit the IEP if behaviors change. So if they're improving the behavior, you got to make sure you're documenting that in the IEP as well. You're documenting that when you do your progress report, you're documenting that. If the behavior is not changing, same thing, document that, because you may need to change your strategy or your plan that you have to improve that behavior. Okay? Because keep in mind, a well-written behavior plan is proactive. Like, you're being proactive with that. It helps you to be proactive. Okay? So I'm just going to recap the things you need in the IEP so that way you can address behavior. So your present education level section, which is section 2, should describe the behavior, should describe the triggers, any patterns, and the impact of the behavior. Like, what's happening because of this behavior, like what's happening. Okay? And you should get your input from all the teachers. You also will then use that information to create SMART behavior goals. Remember, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Then, from there, you're going to create what accommodations and supports will the student need to improve this behavior. What strategies are they going to need? Are they going to need sensory breaks? Are they going to need a visual calendar? Are they going to need cues, nonverbal cues, verbal cues? Will they require counseling, group counseling? Will they require check-in, check-out? And then you got to make sure you have your behavior intervention plan. So your FBA needs to be done, a functional behavior assessment, which helps you to get to the root of the behavior. And then the behavior intervention plan, which is what is the replacement behavior? What's going to happen when they exhibit that replacement behavior? What will happen if they don't exhibit that replacement behavior? And it's going to include all the strategies and the support that the student requires. Okay? That is how it should be addressed in the IEP. That's how behavior should be addressed in an IEP. Now, you may be wondering, well, when do you put behavior in an IEP? Like, when should you start putting it in an IEP? Behavior needs to be documented in the IEP if the behavior is interfering with that student's education or is interfering with the education of other students. Okay, that's when you have to start documenting behavior. If the student who has the IEP, if their behavior interferes with their education or the education of others or their peers around them, that's when you need to document, and you need to do an FBA and do a BIP. All right, any questions? Put your questions in the comments. Any questions? Any questions? While you are doing that, because I know it takes some time for you to type, I am just going to remind you guys, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, the IEP Insider. We have our tips, strategies, actionable tips and strategies that you can apply right away. This is for our SPED teachers, teams, and administrators. This is for you. So go ahead and click the link I just put in the comments so that way you can subscribe to the newsletter. That newsletter is fire. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you, okay? All right. That newsletter is fire. All right. And hold on. Also, another thing that we have, our IEP in a nutshell, that is our most popular workshop. It is now on demand. So you don't got to wait for us to do it. You can just click the link and watch the workshop right away, instantly. That's why it's on demand. That's why it is on demand. Okay? That is why it's on demand. And then last but not least, oh, I'm sorry. I copied the newsletter again. Sorry. I got to copy the IEP in a nutshell on demand. Here we go, guys. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. IEP in a nutshell on demand. And of course, we have freebies for you. We have freebies for parents. We got them for teachers. We got freebies for administrators. So there's something for everybody in our Coaching Corner Hub. And I'm going to drop the link for that right now. Let me make sure I do the right link. All right. Freebies is dropping. Those of you who are on Instagram, you can click the link in our bio and go right to them. Any questions? If you got a question about behavior, how it's addressed in the IEP, you can ask your question. Or if it's about something else regarding special education, that is fine too. But we want to give you this time to ask your questions. All right. I don't know why Facebook acts up sometimes when I share a link or something in the comment section. Okay, now I went through that time. All right, no questions? All right, no questions. If the question comes to you later on, feel free to DM us. We are at the IEP Coach LLC on all platforms. So you can go ahead and message us. We are very responsive. We go live every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, the IEP Insider. We have a new issue coming out next week. So you want to make sure you're already subscribed so you get the notifications. And make sure you take advantage of our IEP in a nutshell on demand. You can take it. You can take the workshop instantly. View the workshop right away. And we have freebies. So take advantage of our freebies. The links are in the comments. And remember to be kind to yourself. Remember your capacity. You're one person. You're only able to do what you are capable of doing. And be safe. And we will see you all next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.